G'day everyone, continuing my top 20 album series. We're now up to number 17. And this one is one of my favourite bands, part of the Seattle grunge movement that so many of us were so big on in the early 90s. The band is Alice in Chains. However, the album isn't the one I think a lot of people will go with, and that is Dirt. Don't get me wrong, that is a great album, but I am a slightly bigger fan of Alice in Chains' debut album, FACELIFT, which was released in late 1990. So, in grunge terms, in terms of commercial recognition anyway, this is one of the earliest entrants. My introduction to this band was seeing the film clip for Man in the Box. Great song, you've probably heard it. That actually was nominated for a Grammy Award, believe it or not. Pretty hard to associate the often very middle-of-the-road Grammy Awards with Alice in Chains, but there you go. Did pretty well this album. I think it went double platinum. That was then exceeded by Dirt. If you don't know the story of this band, well, it's pretty heavy going. Certainly heaps of issues with drug addiction, and very sadly, Lane Staley, the frontman and lead singer with an amazing voice, he died in, I think, 2002. The good news is that the band has continued with a replacement lead vocalist, William Duval, and funny as it seems, because they had such incredible harmonising between Staley and the other frontman and lead guitarist Jerry Cantrell. I think Duval's actually been able to replicate that, and I like the three albums they've done with him a lot. Not as much as this one, however. Drug use and drug addiction is a huge theme with their work, certainly on Dirt. Probably a bit less so in this album, though. It's slightly less gloomy sounding and a little sort of, straighter rock sounding. Kicks off with one of my favourite Alice in Chains songs, We Die Young, which was a single. It's pretty sludgy rock, but still has a fair tempo. Man in the Box is second track. Another single off the album, Sea of Sorrow, which is a bit different for them. It's a little, I wouldn't say sunnier, but it's not sort of touching on those usual themes. They're an incredible band, Alice in Chains. They managed to get a real heavy rock sound, but the counterpoint to that, I always thought, was the vocal harmonising between Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell. Wow, those two could really sing together. And if you want a great example of that, there's a whole series of MTV Unplugged concerts that were done in the early 90s. And Alice in Chains did one not long before things got really crook for Lane Staley. And it's basically just them and acoustic guitars. And wow, it is an incredible vocal performance. Quite beautiful, quite haunting, I'd say, almost in places. But those harmonies set against such heavy driving rock is an incredible combination. Like I said, the themes are fairly dark, and if that is an attraction for you, I'd steer away. But I guess it was sort of tied up with the grunge scene and the rock scene in general, wasn't it? A lot of good songs have been written about drug use, a high price to pay for some good songwriting, but they had some rippers. Some other good tracks on FACELIFT, Bleed the Freak, It Ain't Like That, I really like as well. Confusion, which starts off very slow but has a very gripping chorus, and Real Thing, the last track of the album, which is very, very much about drug use. This album, or two tracks from this album, featured in the movie Singles, which did very well and was sort of about that Seattle scene. I think you see them playing It Ain't Like That live from memory, and the other song that gets an airing in it too is Would, W-O-U-L-D, ? Which is actually off Dirt, not this album. But this was the start of it for Alice in Chains, really brought them into the commercial sphere, and they, alongside Nirvana and Soundgarden, probably the three bands most instantly identifiable with that whole grunge movement. Like I said, they're still going and still doing some great stuff too, so worth checking out their last 3 albums with William Duval. But if you want to see where it all started for Alice in Chains, Facelift is their debut album. It's a ripper, and it's my number 17. I'll see you later.